Hello everyone, today's video is all about VAT and the gig economy. So what's the issue here? Well, HMRC have just released in the last few days a consultation paper all around VAT and the gig economy. Basically, in a nutshell, HMRC think that they are losing out on vast amounts of VAT in the so-called gig economy. So let's take a little rewind back to 2015. It was estimated that about £7 billion of revenue was generated from the gig economy in the UK. Fast forward to 2025, 10 years on, and it's estimated that that will be about 140 billion. So the gig economy is obviously huge now. It's really taking off. But basically, how it works is that all these thousands and thousands of people who are now working in the gig economy, who are self-employed, are mostly turning over less than the VAT threshold in the UK, currently £85,000, which means that they are not having to charge VAT on their services. So HMRC are not receiving that VAT, that output VAT, because all these individuals don't need to be VAT registered. HMRC's gripe about all this is that actually, if it wasn't for the fact that they were all deemed to be self-employed, if they were employees of these digital platforms, then these platforms, who were turning over millions or billions, would be paying huge amounts of VAT over to HMRC. So it's the likes of Uber, TaskRabbit, Airbnb. HMRC is saying, look, we're losing out here. Now, on those numbers that I've said, where it's gone from 7 billion to 140 billion in a decade, quick maths on that, 20% VAT, that's around about 28 billion of potential output VAT that HMRC is missing. So they are really keen to somehow tap into the revenue streams of the gig economy, specifically to get some VAT. Now, the issue is that there is a current government pledge not to raise the headline rates of tax of VAT, income tax and national insurance. So they're not talking about increasing the VAT rate from 20% to 25% or anything like that, just bringing more people within the scope of VAT. So that's a neat way of getting around their election pledge. They're not going to breach that by bringing all these tens or hundreds of thousands of people within the scope of VAT, because they're not increasing the actual VAT rate itself. Now, in terms of how can they do that, at the moment, when we delve a little bit further into the VAT rules, it all hinges on the principle of what's known as agent versus principal. Agent v principal. It's a well-established VAT set of rules. And basically what it says is that if you are a principal, you are the one that accounts for the VAT on your services. Yes, you can have agent working for you, but as the principal, you're the one that will account for the VAT to the consumer. Now, looking at the example of these digital platforms and the workers in the gig economy who are subscribed to them, technically speaking, right now as it stands, the platforms such as Uber are the agents and the drivers are the principals. So the drivers would be the ones that would have to charge VAT under current VAT law if they exceeded the £85,000 turnover threshold. Now, this agent principal rule has been tried and tested in the VAT courts in the UK for decades, and it's a fairly well-established rule. And as it stands right now, that's the situation, that the drivers or the renters of their accommodation are principals, and the agents acting on their behalf are the platforms such as Airbnb and Uber. Now, what HMRC is suggesting, or it's mentioned in its recent consultation paper, is should they change the law on agent and principal relationships from a VAT point of view, because for a lot of cases, to all intents and purposes, most people consider it's the platform that is the principal. not the agent. It's the other way. They think it's the other way round. That's what HMRC thinks. So really, should there be some sort of change in the law, specifically on this agent principle idea, that would mean that the role reversal from a VAT point of view, and the platforms having to account for VAT, because yes, when you look at those guys, they are well in excess of the VAT threshold. They're turning over millions. So that is currently on the cards. HMRC have put this out in the public domain just in the last few days, inviting anyone who's interested, stakeholders or the wider public, to comment and to see what the thoughts are on somehow charging VAT on this sharing economy. So we will wait and see what happens there, but it would be a potential game changer for those in the gig economy who would possibly have to start charging VAT either from themselves or through the platform, but that would ultimately be passed on to the consumer. So I guess all of us who use Uber or Airbnb would ultimately suffer, because that cost would come down the food chain to the end user, which is you and me who like to use these services. So I've done a whole separate video on the gig economy in general, several issues surrounding it, the fact that a lot of individuals who work in it want to be employees from an employment law perspective, holiday pay, sick pay, all that kind of thing, and yet on the flip side would choose not to be employees from a tax point of view, because from a tax perspective you're often better off being self-employed than being an employee, better for income tax. So a real dichotomy going on in the gig economy about things like tax, employed, self-employed, employment rights, separate to this whole VAT issue. But it is quite complicated because it's a relatively new phenomenon, the whole thing. But it is ballooning into a massive area, not only in the UK but all over the world. So lots of different things to factor in the gig economy. But if you like this video on VAT and the potential changes afoot, do please subscribe here, and I will see you soon.